Hello, I'm Jyotika. Welcome to Excelling Psychology. In today's lesson, we are solving 2024 GCSE Paper 1 for EQA board. This lesson is equally useful to IGCSE students of the EQA board. So, if you've taken IGCSE, most of the topics that we are covering here are there in your syllabus as well. So, you can really benefit from watching this lesson and learning how to write answers because you have to write in the same way. Before I begin, I want you to know that I'm a school teacher and private tutor for psychology. I'm tutoring students for their international GCSE, UK GCSE, international A levels, and UK A levels curriculum for more than 10 years now. So, if you want your classes with me, my WhatsApp number and email ID are available in the description box and pinned comment below. Okay, in today's class, we are going to look at model answers for the paper. I've pre-written them so that we don't spend too much time having to write every answer. And instead, we can focus on how the answers are written. Because, of course, you do not have to memorize these answers that I'm presenting. You have to learn how these answers have been structured, organized, what type of content has been covered, so that you can write similar answers. Also, I will discuss common mistakes that students make on various questions and how you can avoid them. I want to be thorough but also quick. So let's begin with the first question. It's very common for a paper to begin with a multiple choice question. The first thing we should do when a multiple choice question is given is to read the question very carefully. So let's read it. Marks have been missed here. I'll just write this is for 2 marks. Question 1. One factor that can affect the accuracy of memory is context. Which two of the following are most likely to occur due to context? Shade 2 boxes. For any multiple choice question, there is always a strategy. First, think of the correct answer independently without looking at the response choices. Then look at the response choices, see whether the answer you have thought of is there and consider it to be correct, but do not shade it immediately. Once you've decided what is the correct answer, look at the remaining response choices also and just rule them out to be doubly sure that which you are thinking is the correct answer is indeed the correct one. Now, as far as this question is concerned, there's only one thing. I cannot think beforehand what is the correct answer because this is more of an AO2 type of question. I am expected to look at the response choices and then decide which is the correct answer. It's not directly AO1. It's not something that I have to write from memory. So what I'll do is I will just look at all possible alternatives and I will do ruling out for this case. But in further MCQs, we can apply this entire strategy which I have mentioned here. Alright. Very important is to note that twice they have mentioned here shade 2 boxes. 1 mark we are getting for each box that we shade. So we should be very careful about this if we shade only 1 box, which many students will do because they'll read the question in a haste. They will lose out on 1 mark unnecessarily. Okay, let's look at the first response choice. We call our new English teacher by our previous teacher's name. This is not the correct response choice because this is a type of interference. This is not a problem of accuracy in context. If I call my new teacher by the previous teacher's name, then I'm showing retroactive interference. Let's look at the next response choice. We cannot remember information during a class test because we revised for the test at home. This is a correct choice because it does talk about context. Context is nothing but surroundings or circumstances. Here what is happening, because I have learned the for the test in a different surrounding or in a different circumstance, which is my home, in the class surrounding or class circumstance, I'm not able to remember. So these points have directly to do with context. Next, we can see response choices. We forget our old mobile phone number since we replaced it with a new one. This is again interference, only this time it is proactive interference. New information is interfering with the old one. Right now we are looking at context, not interference, so this cannot be the right choice. Next is we incorrectly remember our lines in the school play because we have not rehearsed them enough. This is just a problem of information not being transferred from STM to LTM. Rehearsal is missing. Again, nothing to do with context. Let's look at the next one. Though we know already two choices are correct, this must be the correct one, but still, we'll read very carefully. We see the school librarian in the school supermarket and cannot remember his name. Normally, we see the librarian in the library, but now we are seeing them in the supermarket. This talks again about surroundings or circumstances. If I were to see them in the library, I would recognize them, but because I see them in a different surrounding, in the supermarket, I do not recognize them. So, this talks about context. This is correct. So, here in the model answer, you can see B and E have been taken. At least for your practice papers, if not in the final paper, do undertake the entire process that I have just now of ruling out alternatives. It helps you in more ways than one. It helps you to be sure that your correct answer which you're marking is indeed correct, and secondly it helps you to revise all the other concepts like which you have learned. So it's a very good opportunity during practice to refresh all concepts. Like in this case, we were able to refresh our knowledge of retroactive interference, proactive, and also transference from STM to LTM. This helps us to strengthen our psychological core. In the paper, we have roughly 1 mark per minute. So, this answer, as such, you should be able to complete in 2 minutes at most. I am speaking out and explaining to you, so it's taking a lot of time. But when you do it, you will easily be able to cover in 2 minutes, even if you use the full strategy which I have given. Let's come to the next question. Table 1 includes some of the main features of the multi store model of memory. Three main features are missing from the table. Complete all three missing parts of table 1. Write your answers in the correct spaces. This is a completely AO1 question, totally descriptive. No strengths, weaknesses, no application needs to be done here. So for 3 marks, strictly 1 mark each for each feature that we present. If you've learned the multi-store model well, you'll be able to answer this very easily. First given is sensory memory. Coding is the same way received from senses, what we call raw encoding. Capacity is very limited. What is the duration? Actually, capacity is quite big of the sensory memory. I don't know why it's given this way. Anyways, right now it's not our concern because we are not looking at that. Our answer is concerned with duration. Duration is less than a second. I know many of you must be thinking that it varies with the sensory modality, like which sense organ we are talking about. But on an average, we have learned it's less than a second. So we will write that. Okay, what is duration? How long information can be held? So sensory memory can hold information for less than a second. Coming to short term memory, coding isn't given. Capacity 7 plus or minus 2 items. Duration is up to 30 seconds. Coding means in what form information is held. We have learned short term memory holds it in acoustic, auditory, or hearing form. The correct term is acoustic. We should always use good terminology, especially for the AO1 answers. So make sure you write it as acoustic. MSM should be memorized correctly from the textbook. So keep writing as you have memorized it. Next is long term memory. Coding wise, the form is semantic or meaning based. Capacity isn't given. Capacity means how much information it can hold. That is unlimited in the case of short long term memory, and duration is definitely up to a lifetime. Okay, so all you have to do in this answer is just fill in the numbers, the blanks correctly, and you get full marks for this. Nothing much to it. Let's come to question 3. Explain what is meant by primacy, effect, and recall. This is also AO1 because it's totally descriptive. What you've learned in the textbook, you have to give. You just have to be careful that it's asked for 2 marks. You should give 2 points. 1 point to justify each mark. Many students make the mistake of just defining and not elaborating further. So define it and then elaborate. Elaboration can be just explaining why it happens or give some example. If you want to give an example from Murdoch's study, how they are remembering the first few words in the list is an example of primacy effect, you can give that. Just make sure you're giving totally 2 points. And I'm just repeating it for the last time. I won't repeat again. Whenever AO1 question is there, no strengths, no weaknesses, no application. Strictly giving what we have learned from the textbook. So let's see the model answer. Primacy effect is when you're more likely to remember first piece of information in a list. This is the definition. Okay, if someone gives us a list of words in a series, what we do is we remember only the first few words. Instead of giving example here in the model answer, we see an elaboration is given. The first words have been rehearsed enough, so they transfer to long term memory. You could also say they transfer from short term to long term memory. That's all there is to that answer. Let's come to the next one. First, we'll read some information, then there are questions. So let's read. In a study on false memory, a researcher asked adult participants to discuss different events from childhood. The participants' families gave researcher information about these events. One of the events was fake and made up in a family wedding where red wine had been spilled on the bride's dress. This researcher wrote every word that the adults recalled. He found that 2/5 of the participants described details of the wedding even though the story was made up. Write 2/5 as a decimal. So, mathematical question has been asked. You are allowed to use a calculator in the paper, a simple calculator, not a scientific one, or you can do the working out manually. I'll show you both ways how to do it. Here, the working isn't asked for, so you just directly have to give the answer. Sometimes working is also asked for, then you have to show the working in the paper itself. Here, I will show you the working for you to know how to calculate. I forgot to mention at the beginning, if at any time you're feeling that my pace is fast, it's just because I'm trying to cover the video quickly. You can pause the video. You can take a screenshot of this paper if you need. I will upload it on my website and link it below. It's just that it might take some time. So in the meanwhile, you can take screenshots of any questions and answers that you need. Okay, let me first show you how you can manually calculate a decimal. They want 2/5 as a decimal. 2 upon 5, the fraction that is there, they want you to convert it to a decimal. This is called 2/5. If you do manual division, what you will have to do, 2 is not divisible by 5, so you will have to add a 0. Now when you add a 0, a decimal place comes in. 20 is divisible by 5, you know your 5's table, 4. 5 fours are 20. So the answer becomes 0.4. So you can calculate it this way and just write the final answer here. Otherwise, you can do it on the calculator. I'll quickly show you how to do it on the calculator as well. Okay, so to do it on the calculator, you have to do 2 divided by 5 and then you have to press the equal to sign. The answer that you get, you have to fill in here. So that's for that question. Let's look at the next one. There were 200 participants in the study. Calculate how many participants did not describe details of the wedding. Show your working. Okay, they have asked for working, but I've presented the logic also over here, not compulsory. Like this part, if you want, you can skip, but just for your understanding. How do we know, first of all, how many did not describe the details of the false event? Because previously it's mentioned that 2/5 did describe the events of the wedding. So if 2/5 described it, that just means goes to show that 3/5 did not describe it, right? The total is 1. Any fraction total is always 1. So we just subtract 2/5 from it. We end up with 3/5. That's the logic. In the paper, you have to show the working. So working, how you have to do is, you have to find out 3/5 out of 200. So 3 upon 5 into 200. That is what you're doing over here. If you divide 200 by 5, you will get 40. And then if you multiply 3 into 40, you will get 120. So this is how you can do it manually, and then you can write the final answer. When they say show your workings, they are going to mark you for every working. If you just give 120, you will get only 1 mark out of 3. First, if you present the correct form, how you're doing the division, you get 1 mark for that. Then you show the intermediate step, which is how you're multiplying the remainder with the, what do we say, the numerator. For that you get 1 mark, and 1 mark you get for the final answer. You can do it on the calculator also, which I'll show you now. But even if you're doing on the calculator, these steps you will still have to give, which I'm highlighting in yellow to get full marks. Okay, on the calculator, how you can do it is, you have to do 3 upon 5 of 20. So what you can do is 200 divided by 5, because 200 is on the numerator, 5 is on the denominator. You can check that again here. So first you can do 200 divided by 5. and then you can press equal to, then you can do 40, what was the remainder, into the numerator 3, you get 120. Again press equal to, and then the final answer is there on your calculator. Okay, so these were some mathematical questions. Let's come to the next one. The researcher claimed that his report on the study also contained qualitative data. Use the description of the study to justify the researcher's claim. Yes, simply what they're asking you is how come the researcher is saying that there is qualitative data. So you need to point out what is the qualitative data. This is an AO2 question. They are asking you, this particular researcher in the situation given, how have they collected qualitative data? No doubt in research methods you have learned a general definition of what qualitative data is. But here if you're going to give only that, like descriptively you're going to write qualitative data is data in words or in descriptions, you will not get marks. You can say that it is descriptive data, but then immediately you have to link it to the situation given. Always for AO2 at GCSE, think of the CCL technique: context, content, link. Okay, they've asked you what is your trigger in the question, qualitative data. First, look out in the situation. Where did they mention qualitative data? Researcher was writing down all the words that they recalled. Words he was writing down. That is the context. What is the content? What is qualitative data that you have learned descriptively in research methods? It is descriptive data. Now link it. Link what you have written, the 2 points above. What did the researcher do? He wrote down the words. Qualitative data is description. Therefore, the researcher did a descriptive collection of the data. Right? And then you can put it in neat words in the paper. You can phrase proper sentences and write. So now we'll see that in the model answer. This is the strategy using which the answers are written. Okay, the researcher can claim he collected call data because, see, here is the context. He wrote down every word the participants recalled. This means data was in the form of words and descriptions. This is the content, the definition we have learned of qualitative data from his discussions with them, which is what qualitative data is. This is the link. Let's see, this is only what qualitative data is, and this is only what he's collected. So we link it off this way. A reminder to you, anytime you need to look at the answer more carefully, please pause the video, take a screenshot if needed. Let's look at the next question. Ivan was a participant in the study. The researcher asked Ivan about a primary school camping trip to Snowdonia. Ivan remembered that Snowdonia is in Wales. He also recalled celebrating his best friend's birthday during the trip and learning to paddle a canoe. As an adult, he still enjoys paddling a canoe on a nearby lake. Episodic, procedural, and semantic are different types of long term memory. Identify one example of each type from Ivan's discussion about his school trip. Again, an AO2 question. In any question, when a stem is given to your full situation is described, of course, when they ask a question, they want you to answer with complete linkage to that situation. Otherwise, they would have just generally asked you what is episodic, semantic, and procedural memory. They want you to point out in Ivan's case what is episodic, semantic, and procedural memory. Each is worth 1 mark because it's 3 marks. As such, the identify command term means that you only have to name. You do not have to elaborate. So for this question, you do not have to follow the complete CCL guidelines, rather only the context. You just have to point out where these three are being seen. You need not explain why you are saying a particular memory is episodic, procedural, or semantic. If they wanted you to explain why you are saying that, they would have used the command term outline or explain, and they would have allotted 6 marks instead of 3 for this question. Of course, when you're writing, your strategy has to be in your mind, remember the definition so that you can identify correctly. Episodic memory, you know, is memory for events. What is the event that Ivan is remembering in this case? Celebrating his best friend's birthday. That was his experience or event. So that will come as episodic memory. Procedural memory is memory for performing skills. What is the skill that Ivan is performing? Paddling a canoe. So that comes under procedural. Semantic memory is remembering the meaning of things. What is the meaning that Ivan is remembering? Snowdonia is in Wales. It's a fact that he's remembering. Semantic memory includes meanings and facts. So that is coming under semantic. Let's move ahead. Question 5, the 9 marker, which most students read. We learn how it is organized with the help of model answer. We learn better. The theory of reconstructive memory states that people recreate their memories by actively using what they already know and believe about the world. Describe and evaluate one study that has investigated reconstructive memory. Okay, there's a fair bit to discuss here. I'll try to be quick about it. First thing, a study. Many students will read in a haste, they will start describing and evaluating reconstructive memory. That is Bartlett's theory. Very clearly, they want to evaluate the study, which is Bartlett's study of War of Ghosts, which comes under reconstructive memory. They don't want you to outline and evaluate reconstructive memory by itself. That is the first thing to note. 9 marks are allotted. AO1 is worth 5 marks always in these questions, and AO3 is worth 4 marks. It's your choice. Ideally, you should give 2 evaluation points and elaborate on each. Follow the PEC format for each at GCSE level. If your wish, if you can give 3 points, very good. Each PEC, just make sure you're covering in 9 minutes. If it's taking you more than that, just take 2 points and explain them well. Because like I told you, 1 mark per minute. Coming to AO1, 5 marks, make sure to cover 5 unique points of description. So that is all there is in the organization. AO1, 5 unique points that you can describe about the study, and AO3, 3 points PEC format, strengths or weaknesses, or 2, even 2 is sufficient if described well. For a study, make sure to present in the format of aims, procedure, results, conclusion. By this, I do not mean that you have to write in a bulleted list format. I just mean that inherent structure in your AO1 should be aim, procedure, and results. Don't miss out on any of these. It becomes very difficult to follow the study. I will not be able to read out the whole model answer. It will take too much time for a 9 marker. So please pause the video, take a screenshot if needed. I'll just be reading out highlights from this model answer. Okay, for AO1, you can see, firstly, the study is named, which is very good practice. I'll tell you why, because in the question, if they just say one study and they don't directly name Bartlett, you should just highlight to the examiner which study you're discussing. So first say Bartlett's War of the Ghosts is the related study. Then it comes to the procedure. uh, you must be thinking, where's the aim? That is here only in the first sentence itself. It was investigating reconstructive memory. That was only the aim of Bartlett's study. Okay, then it comes to the procedure that participants had to memorize a story, War of the Ghosts, which was unfamiliar. Then it comes to the results. They changed the details, so they showed reconstruction. An example is also given to keep it contextualized. Make sure you don't keep on describing generically. So you don't keep on just saying they had to remember something, they made some mistakes in remembering. So that shows memory is reconstructive. Don't be too general about the points. Be specific. Like a specific example here is, instead of canoes, they said boats, which shows that they were reconstructing. Whatever was more relevant to them, they were able to remember that rather than the cultural element of the study. So make sure you give specific examples from what you've learned in War of the Ghosts. It's a key study. You should have learned it thoroughly. And then it comes to the conclusion that memory is not perfect, it's reconstructed. So you can see the inherent aim, procedure, results, conclusion format in this. Now coming to strengths and weaknesses. For one of the points, I'll show you thoroughly the PEC, how it has been followed. For the remaining, you can just pause the video and read it and figure out the PEC format for yourself. It's very clearly followed. You'll be able to see it very easily. If you want me to make a dedicated video, PEC format for writing evaluation points in GCSE, do comment in the comments box below. PEC means making a point. One strength is this or one weakness is this. First, the student says one strength is that it used a meaningful task. So, point has been made that this particular feature is the strength. So, P part of PEC is done. P means identifying a feature that's a strength or a weakness. E means giving evidence for it or explaining it. Like I made a point that it is a meaningful task. Now, what is the meaningful task? I have to support that point, specifically from War of the Goose. Retelling a story. That is the meaningful task. This is the evidence that they used a meaningful task. They told participants to retell a story. That is what we often do in everyday life. We tell each other stories from our everyday life or what we've seen in the films and so forth. Then link. Link meaning what is the strength exactly over here, what is increasing because of this, and how does it relate to a strength of the study? Like, how does this prove to be a strength? First of all, it increases ecological validity. That is the link. And in terms of what is the strength of the study exactly, it helps us to understand how memory works in real situations. So, Bartlett studies findings are very useful to understanding how memory works in real situations. The remaining two paragraphs I'm brushing through, you can pause and see the structure. Another weakness, like another point which has been made, looking at a weakness, it was unusual and confusing. This is the feature. So, point has been made that this feature is a weakness. Explanation why it is unusual and confusing, because the story was something that was not relevant to participants, it was not familiar to them. And the link is that in everyday life they would be able to recall things accurately, unlike in this study. So that is why this proves to be a weakness of the study. Finally, one more weakness point is there. Weakness, the feature is not very controlled. Evidence or explanation is it was not standardized. Participants could take as much time to learn and as much time to narrate it to others. Timings were not fixed as such. So the link is that it's not very accurate or validity is less because of this. And this a conclusion we can draw about the study from this is that the findings might have been exaggerated. Participants might not make as many errors as Bartlett has assumed in this study. So that is how we can answer the 9 marker, and that completes the memory section. Let's come to perception. Okay, so the first question here is very straightforward with the name command term. Name is AO1 and name means no elaboration. You strictly have to give a 1-2 word answer. Name one binocular depth Q. Your retinal disparity is mentioned. The other possible answer is convergence. You could give that also. You strictly have to name, you don't have to explain what these things are. Okay, so memory based question. Let's look at the next one. Jess is traveling by train and has a window seat. She likes to watch the trees and buildings pass by through the window. Explain why the speed of the passing trees and buildings helps Jess to perceive how far they are. Use your knowledge of motion parallax. This is an EO2 question. You do not have to explain what motion parallax is by itself, but using the CCL technique, context, content, link, which we saw earlier, you have to apply it to Jess's situation. You can interchange, like you can give content before context, that is fine, but make sure to write it in this format. So, here, for example, motion parallax is a monocular cue, this is content. But immediately you need to link that content to Jess. So, after you say that it's a monocular cue, how you link it to Jess is in her situation, they've mentioned trees, and window. So you start talking about those things. You don't keep on elaborating generally what is motion parallax. So when there are trees near the track, they appear to move quickly past the window. Contextualized. Objects that are far away, distant buildings, they appear to move slowly. Again, why distant buildings? Because it's mentioned in the situation. So again, context. And then linking it, Jess's brain is using this information to perceive how far the trees and buildings are. She's seeing how slowly or fast the trees and buildings in particular are moving as she sees from the window. And that is how motion parallax is helping her to judge the distance. So, content, context, link. That is how you give it. You could have given context first, the second sentence first, trees and windows and buildings, and then you could have said what is motion parallax. That would be fine. Just make sure to cover all three. Okay, and also it is for 4 marks. You can see 4 points have been given. By 4 points, I literally mean 4 points, not that 4 sentences have to be there. You can give 4 points in less than 4 or more than 4 sentences. Usually, number of points corresponds to sentences, but that is not necessary. Here, I'll just show you quickly how marks are allotted for the 4 marks. One is for the content, in the sense giving the definition of motion parallax. Second is something has been mentioned about trees. So, explaining the trees part as the context, that gives one. Something has been mentioned about buildings. Explaining something about buildings, that gets another mark. Some students might take only one example, say trees, and they might not explain the buildings, or the other way around. In this case, you would lose marks. If they have given you a 4 marks question and so much context has been given, it's fairly elaborate, they do expect you to make use of all of the context given. So don't miss out on including anything from the context, otherwise you will get your marks reduced. Okay, so 1 mark for the trees part, 1 for the buildings part, and the next is for the link, like reconciling everything and showing that, okay, given that this is motion parallax, given this is how the trees and the buildings are being perceived, so this is how motion parallax is helping Jess to perceive distance. Okay, so this is how 4 marks are allotted. Let's look at the next question, very straightforward. AO1 question, because it is describe and one result has been asked from for a specific study. Gilchrist and Nesberg study into effects of motivation on perception. It is describe, it's not just name or identify, so you do have to elaborate. You can think of the structure as name the result and just explain it a little. By explain, I don't mean that draw an inference or conclusion, but in words only describe what the results are. Just elaborate on them a little more. I'll show you with the help of the model answer. One result is participants who were deprived of food for 20 hours judged the picture of photos to be brighter. So we don't stop at this. This definitely gets 1 mark. But we show the comparison also, compared to whom this deprivation is making them see the foods to be brighter than those who had eaten normally. Okay, so 1 mark for talking about the participants who had been deprived, like the key experimental group. But 1 mark for describing further by saying that how do we know that only this group has been affected, or how only motivation has affected their perception? Because people who had eaten normally, they did not show this same result. When I said you need not give a conclusion, what I meant by that is you don't need to go into the depth of how motivation affects perception. Theoretically, you don't need to give anything. Just a result from the study, but in complete context, indicating what the groups were and what each group was showing in comparison to the other. In general, always remember one rule whenever you give an experimental result, a result of any experimental study. You must specify what both the groups showed in comparison to each other. You should never leave it at experimental group showed this. You always have to show the contrast. Experimental group showed this, whereas the control group showed this. Let's come to the next question. It's a 4 marks question, one strength, one weakness of the same theory, Gilchrist and Nesberg. The study. Effects of motivation on perception for 4 marks. See, here there are two approaches. Either you take 2 points, 2 evaluation points, and just elaborate on each. You don't need to do full PEC. You can if you're quick about it. Otherwise, just give a point and explain. You can leave out the conclusion. Alternatively, take just 1 point and develop it into a full PEC. I would suggest really elaborating on the E part to justify 4 marks. Most students find the first approach easier, taking 2 points and giving each in a PEC format. So that is what is followed here. But when I show you the model answer, I'll explain the alternative format also. It is for 4 marks, though the command term is outlined, but one strength and one weakness, as soon as it's mentioned, becomes entirely AO3 evaluation. Okay, so structure it correctly and give it. Let's see the model answer. Point one strength the study was controlled. Evidence, they use the same pictures and timings for all participants. Link, why is it good or why is it a strength? Because replication can be done. If something standardized, we can repeat it and verify the findings. Weakness point is that participants had to go without food, that's unethical. Evidence, because they could have been uncomfortable, and they did not get to leave the room in the study. Their physical state, what it was in the before, did not match with what happened at the end of the study. link. This shows that the study was unethical or it didn't follow ethical guidelines. So this is 2 points approach. If you want to take only 1 point approach, then this one only you could have elaborated further. Like once you say the example is they use the same picture and timings, you could say that this maintains consistency in the procedure. All participants are treated in the same way with respect to how they observe the pictures and the timings, or you can say how their motivation is manipulated. And that is why then you can give the same link which is given before, that we can check whether the results are reliable. So what we can do is the explanation or the evidence part which we are giving, we can explain it a little further to justify 4 marks. If you're good at doing this, then only take the 1 evaluation point approach. Otherwise stick to the 2 evaluation points approach, which most students find easy. Let's come to the next one. Very easy question. Sketch the Ponzo illusion. Use the space below for your sketch. Here it's a pre-drawn diagram, but all you have to do is make two horizontal lines like which are about to intersect. Make sure that you give the two lines which you give on these lines, like the two horizontal lines which you give. Make sure they are of equal length, because that is what the Ponzo illusion is all about. Don't draw the signs like I've done, but just to indicate to you these are of the same length. That should be the case. Okay, so if you draw like this picture is shown, you'll get full marks. That's all there is to it. One common mistake is to confuse with Muller-Lyer illusion. Do not draw this one, okay? Just make sure to draw Ponzo. Next is outline how psychologists explain the Ponzo illusion. EO1, 3 marks. You just need to explain how it works, what is happening exactly in the Ponzo illusion. Make sure to give 3 points to justify 3 marks. Nothing much to discuss here. Let's see what we can write. Ponzo illusion is about misinterpreting depth cues. It's a visual illusion. Why it happens? Brain is getting confused in judgment of depth. Two parallel lines are going into the distance, or you could say something like meeting at the horizon, like a railway track. And that means the depth cue here is linear perspective. The brain immediately picks the depth cue because it's going to immediately pick up this monocular cue and try to judge the distance. In the process, what happens is once it judges that the lines which are further away are nearby, and the lines which are, I'm sorry, the lines which are closer are further, yeah, I was right. Okay, the lines which are further away are nearby, and the lines which are closer to each other, they are far away. That is what the brain judges. It starts using size constancy after that. Means it automatically assumes that if an object, horizontal line 1, is in the area where the lines are far away from each other, means that area is near the eyes, there the line should appear to be bigger. That is size constancy. And if the horizontal line is at a point where the lines are about to intersect each other, means that is further away from the brain or further away from the eyes, then that should be scaled up. Like it is mentioned here, it should look bigger because the brain is just trying to maintain size constancy. It's just trying to say, oh, this thing is closer to me. So, of course, the line will look smaller over here, and this thing is far away from me, so of course the line will look bigger over here. In the process, it is making the mistake of assuming that the line which is further away is bigger than the line which is closer by, whereas in reality both the lines are of equal length. So that is all we need to explain over here. This answer, especially, you might need to read it once or twice to grasp it fully. You can pause or take a screenshot and read it. Let's come to the next one. Again, some information is given. A researcher investigated whether participants found it easier to perceive distance if the objects used in the study were familiar to them. Researchers placed objects at various distances away from participants, then asked the participants to estimate how far away from them each object was in meters. Some objects were familiar to the participants, other objects were unfamiliar. Each participant saw an identical set of objects. The researcher counted up to how many times the participants correctly estimated the distance within 1 meter. Table 2 shows the results for the study. The title of the table we should always read first. Number of times distance was correctly estimated with 1 meter by participants viewing familiar and unfamiliar objects. In the columns, we can see familiar, unfamiliar is presented in the rows, number of times they correctly estimated. Okay, now many things we will have to answer from here. I hope you're seeing how much of synoptic questions come, how much research methods are used in each section. So I hope you're making your research methods application very strong. The first thing they've asked, identify the dependent variable in the study. This is for 2 marks. Dependent variable means what was the researcher measuring. Another way of thinking about it, whatever the researchers manipulated or changed in the study, what was going to get impacted because of that change. The distance that participants were going to estimate, that was going to get impacted by whether the objects were familiar or unfamiliar. The researcher is deliberately manipulating or changing whether he's presenting them with familiar or unfamiliar objects. That is going to impact how much distance they estimate. So estimated distance becomes the dv. Or simply, if you think, what did the researcher measured? He measured how correctly participants were estimating object distances. Either case, the answer comes to estimated distance. Now, because it is worth 2 marks, we can't just leave at that. We have to give it in an operationalized form. We have to specify how exactly it was measured in meters. The unit of measurement in which they had to estimate the distance was in meters. So, 1 mark for correctly identifying, 1 mark for giving the operationalized definition. Let's look at the next question. Psychologists claim that results of the study allowed conclusions to be drawn about influence of past experience on perception. Explain one conclusion psychologists could draw. I remember previously we saw this results question. Now you'll be able to contrast it with how it's different from conclusion. Conclusion is a broader interpretation we can draw from the results. Okay, also they have specifically said you have to connect the result to past experiences on perception. You have to talk about that. Okay, so if you just say, many students, and most students will say, participants more correctly estimated the distance when familiar objects were shown rather than unfamiliar, because the number is higher. 57 rather than 12 is the frequency, but that's a result. They want a conclusion, so for giving the result you will get 0. What are you understanding from this result? What is this result that 57 is greater than 12 telling you about past experience and perception? You have to present it in those terms. So let's see the model answer. Past experience helps us to perceive the world more accurately. This is the conclusion. Because familiar objects, we have experience with them. Because we have experience with them, we are able to estimate correctly. Unfamiliar objects, we don't have experience with them. So we are not able to estimate them correctly. So 1 mark just for giving this conclusion that we have understood. Second, for explaining it. Why are we saying this? Second mark is for that, but not just quoting the results. In fact, you can see your numbers are not given at all. It's not required. You don't have to say 57 is greater than 12. You just have to explain that, because familiar objects are part of past experience and knowledge. So they are judged better than objects which we don't have familiarity with or which are not familiar. Okay, let's come to the next question. You have been asked to investigate the effect of emotion on perception. Explain how you would design an experiment. To do this, you must include what you would ask the participants to do, what data you would collect, experimental design, why it would be suitable, results you would expect to find, including both conditions of the IV. Actually, there's a lot to discuss in this, but again, to keep it brief, I'll give you the most important points. Only cover the features given in the bullet points. There are too many things to experiments, aims, hypothesis, sampling. None of that has been asked. Don't give those things. You won't get any credit. It'll waste your time. You have very limited time. Only these features for 6 marks. They have made sure to give features which will cover 6 marks. Next thing, it's given in a certain order, point by point. Try to follow the order to the best. It's not compulsory, but that way the examiner doesn't miss out that you have covered everything. So first they talk about doing data, first talk about that, then experimental design, why talk about that, results talk about last. Many students confuse between experimental design and research method. Research method is given experiment, so don't try to change it to questionnaire or interview or case study. Experimental design means repeated measures design, independent groups design, or matched pairs design. Make sure you understand all elements of research methods before attempting these type of questions. Okay, I can't discuss more than this right now, but this question comes under AO2. You have to apply your knowledge of research methods to the situation given over here. Do not try to give any descriptives like generally describing what is an experimental design or what is independent groups design. Every point present contextualized. Every single point should talk about this particular experiment of emotion on perception. Nothing should be outside of that. Again, I won't be able to read the whole model answer for this one. It's too long. Key points I will discuss. Model answer does mention independent groups design, but later also it's mentioned. Here it's just mentioned to give a flow, to be able to understand what is happening. It's not given out of order as such. Okay, so they asked, say what you would do. So I'll make one group of participants watch a scary film clip and one a boring documentary. This is the do part. They've said what data you would collect, verbal descriptions. So data part. What experimental design? Independent groups design. Why? Because if I use another design, repeated measures, they'd get bored or tired. Basically, fatigue effect or order effect will take place. Why? What results you expect to find? Expect to find that those who are in fearful condition, they will find the ambiguous images more threatening. Like they will be primed to see it more threateningly. They'll be motivated to see it in a threatening way. You can phrase either way. So this is the result. And you have to include both conditions in the result. So for the next condition also it's mentioned in neutral condition. They will see it like a harmless tree. All the points are covered as asked. So everywhere correct points are there. 1 mark will be allotted till it reaches 6 marks. And please pause the video, take a screenshot, read how every single point is in context of the situation given. Nothing of this has been given as a general description. Let's come to the next section, development. Okay, which one of the following is a feature of Willingham's ideas about learning? So again, we'll do the ruling out type of method quickly. Teacher should teach each child according to their preferred learning style. Of course not. There has to be a match between teacher and learner. It cannot be only about the learner. Learning is most effective when teaching style matches the content of the lesson. Yes, teacher has to modify to the content of the lesson. She has to match it to the lesson and the way the learner learns. So this is correct. This is what Willingham has given proof for. So B is correct. Teaching students in their chosen learning style has a positive effect. Again, this is too extreme. We cannot go only by what the learner wants. Visual tasks should always be used when teaching students who have visualized a learning style. No, Willingham has said it cannot be absolute or 100%. Even if someone has visualized a style, 100% of times we are not going to use that method. So correct answer is definitely B. In the paper for the shading type of answers, they give you something like this. So make sure you shade it correctly, fully. Next is briefly evaluate Dweck's mindset theory of learning. Again, 3 marks, your choice. You want to give 2 PEC points, you want to give 1 PEC point and elaborate really well. I always take the 2 PEC points. GCSE students find it easy. So evaluate one strength, one weakness preferably, but you could also give both strengths, both weaknesses. You can pause and see this answer if needed. Strength is it has application, so point feature has been identified. Evidence is like what sort of application it has. Growth mindset can be inculcated in children to improve their motivation. Link, why is it a strength of the theory? It will help students to achieve more. Then weakness wise, it can be used to blame the student. That is one feature which is a weakness. Evidence, because if students have a fixed mindset, then we will say because of their fixed mindset they aren't performing well. And actual issues like class size is too big, so no individual attention or resources are limited, so students don't have enough to study from, they will be ignored. It's like victim blaming. And then conclusion, like why that this becomes a weakness of the theory, because responsibility is being put solely on the child, which is unethical. Let's look at the next question. Hassan is 8 years old, has been asked so he has asked his sister Ruby for help with maths homework. Ruby is 13 years. Whenever they start off with ages, understand it's going to be about Piaget's theory and start thinking immediately what must be the stage in which each of the children is. Hassan must be concrete operational because he's 8 years, and 7 to 12 to 13 becomes concrete operational. Ruby's 13, 13 plus becomes formal operational. So immediately start identifying once you've understood what the question is about. Ruby is able to solve the maths problems in her head, but Hassan has to count using his fingers. Explain why Hassan and Ruby use different methods. Use your knowledge of Piaget's theory of development. Completely AO2, use the CCL. First, use it for Hassan because he's named first, so follow the order. Then, use it for Ruby. Okay. So for Hassan, the context is that he can only reason about by physically counting, like using his fingers to count. That is what we are taking from the stem. Content is that he's in the concrete operational stage, 8 years. And then link. Link is that because he is in that pre-operational state, children can only reason about solve problems using like concrete physical objects or action. So that is why he's doing it. So here we have completely explained the point. Same thing we repeat for Ruby. The context is that she can solve maths problems in her head. Content is that she's in formal operational. Link is that in this stage, children are able to do abstract thought and reasoning. That is why she's able to just solve it in her head. Let's come to the next question. Very similar to that designing a study we saw before, researcher wants to investigate the most common behaviors displayed by children in sensory motor stage. The researcher and assistant decide to carry out controlled observation study. One behavior observed is shaking a rattle. Describe how you would carry out the study. You need to do some selected points. Identify age range, two suitable behavior categories. Exclusionary criterion is there, do not include shaking a rattle. So make sure you do not include that, it's already given here. Briefly describe two ways to make sure there is inter-observer reliability. Identify one way researcher could make sure study is ethical. So all of these points cover and make sure each point is contextualized. Do not write anything outside of these points. If you need more advice for this answer, just revisit the previous question, which was of this type. Okay, so suitable age range is mentioned in the model answer. Okay, you can pause and read the model answer. Two suitable categories have been explicitly given. Specific example, sucking thumb, looking towards hidden object. And shake a rattle has not been used as one of the categories. The categories are totally different. So what has been kept as an exclusionary criteria, the student has been mindful of it. Inter-observer reliability has been specified. Two ways have been asked. So two ways are mentioned. First of all, they should use the same checklist of behavioral categories. Researcher assistant has been mentioned, or you could say two researchers. And also they should compare their results. You could also mention like calculating a coefficient of inter-observer reliability if you've learned those things. Otherwise, just you can talk about comparison or cross-validating. One way they could make sure it is ethical, informed consent from parents because children are involved. So to keep it relevant to the situation, because children are there, informed consent will be taken from parents. So all the points are covered, all 6 marks will be achieved. Next question is, psychologists have developed many ways to study the brain. A psychologist called Penfield used the Montreal procedure to study the cortex. The method involves gently stimulating parts of the cortex with electricity. Participants were asked to describe any sensations they experienced, outline early brain development, discuss appropriateness of Penfield's method before birth and during early years of life. Again, same thing. For more advice, you can go to the previous 9 marker question. You can go back into the video. AO1 is for 5 marks, AO3 is for 4 marks. Only one difference you will notice here, they're very specific. They don't tell you just evaluate anything about early brain development. You have to evaluate appropriateness for before birth and during early years of life. So your discussion has to be specifically about these two things. Any other evaluation points outside the scope you cannot give. So first I won't be able to read the whole model answer, but I'll just point out to you what are the 5 points given for AO1 description. When brain development begins in terms of outline early brain development, neural tube develops at that time. The 6th week, what happens, how the neural tube gets subdivided, that has been mentioned. Here easily 2 in fact 3 points can be taken because forebrain, hindbrain, both are mentioned. So this will in fact count as 3 points. Brain is fully formed at 6 months. That will count as yet another point. The size is given, actually that can be taken as a fifth point. It grows very quickly and about 80% by age 3, that will count as a 6 point. So in fact the student has given more than the required 5 points for AO1. Okay, this is very factual. You just have to memorize and present AO1 for brain development type of answers. Now coming to evaluation strictly as the way asked. So as such, the evaluation points are in PEC. But if you're wondering, last time there were 3 evaluation points, this time there are only 2. The reason is that only because here they've restricted us to 2 things about which we can evaluate. Both are weaknesses, because if we are going to use Penfield's Montreal stimulation method before birth, the point is it is very invasive. To evidence this, it's like open brain surgery, and for an unborn baby, of course, that risk cannot be taken to do like open brain surgery type of a procedure. So the conclusion is that an unborn baby is going to experience damage because of this, and they cannot even give consent. So there's no even willingness of the baby to take part. So of course this should not be done. That is linking back to what they've asked. Is it appropriate? No, it is not appropriate. Next, early years of life. Again, it's inappropriate even for that. The point is that the child will not be able to give informed consent for something as serious as a brain surgery. Evidence or explanations, the brain is still developing, so stimulation can be harmful even for a young child, though they are not an unborn baby. Conclusion, the child, even though they are bigger, they are not unborn, they can speak out and express, yet they are too young to express what they're experiencing if such a surgery is to be carried out at all. So it's far too dangerous and it shouldn't be done. Okay, so that's for the development section. Let's come to research methods. Research methods, first question again MCQ. Which of the following is the reason why the range may be calculated in research? Now, this is one question where you can think of the answer beforehand. You know why range is calculated. To measure spread, dispersion, or variability in data. So, first think of the answer without looking at response choices, then look at response choices. Where is the answer which you have thought of? It's here. But still, to be doubly sure, make sure to rule out the remaining. Would the range be used to decide whether sample is representative of population? No, that would be inferential statistics. To find most common value in set of scores? No, that would be measure of central tendency. To see how well group of participants has performed compared to another group? No, that would be comparison through tables or graphs. Again, that comes to central tendency. So we are right in assuming that range is used to see how dispersed the data is. This is a purely memory based question, so 1 mark you can score easily. Next is sketch the shape of normal distribution on the graph paper. Clearly label where the mean score would be. 2 marks, two clearly different questions have been asked. Sketch the shape, 1 mark for that. Clearly label mean, second mark for that. Make sure you do both to get 2 marks, as easy as that. You just have to do anything bell shaped. Your drawing does not have to be very artistic. They'll just see you've given the bell shaped type of thing and they'll give you marks. Just try your best to, anyhow, even if your sketch quality is not very good, keep the hump part of the bell shape where the 50 is there, the middle section. Okay, and also as such, you know that the normal curve extends to infinity on both ends. It is asymptotic, it never touches the x-axis. So if you can follow those principles, good, but doesn't matter much. Just the key thing is that the hump should be here. And why they've given you such a definite scale? Okay, don't write hump, I'm just writing it to explain to you. Why this whole scale is given over here? Because they want you to point exactly at the middle point and show like this is where the mean would be there. I'm making a line. You don't need to make a line, you could just make a dot or something in middle, or just make an arrow and point out that the mean is there. Means either way, just make sure you're labeling mean at the center. So 1 mark for sketching a bell shaped curve, second for giving the mean. Let's come to the next one. Read the following information. Watch out dinosaurs about. A mobile phone company produced an app, Dino Catch, to encourage people to exercise and enjoy more time outdoors. Someone playing Dino Catch would catch digital dinosaurs on their mobile phone. This is something like the Pokemon thing. These dinosaurs appeared on the screen when the player arrived at outdoor location like parks, Researcher wanted to assess impact of dino catch in the town of Water Lake. She counted number of visitors to Water Lake between 1 to 2 p.m. each of the 7 days before dino catch was introduced, and at the same time during each of the 7 days afterwards. Write a suitable alternative hypothesis. This is clearly an experimental study because there's before after in this. Okay, so there's a comparison. Differences being seen before and after. So make sure you give experimental type of hypothesis, not the correlational type. Alternative meaning you can give directional or non-directional, but don't put it as no. Don't make it a null hypothesis. So don't claim no difference. Claim a difference, either a specific one and make it directional, or a non-specific one and make it non-directional. But make sure you're saying that there will be a difference between the conditions. In this model, answer a non-directional is given, and that's fine, as long as the word no has not been used. Besides that, in phrasing of hypothesis experimental study, make sure to mention both conditions clearly and show what these conditions are being compared on. I'll just highlight these things in the model answer. There will be a difference, so no is not being used. Correct way of phrasing alternative. Between whom the difference will be the what is the condition before and after. And specific to the situation, not just before and after. Park in the 7 days. Dino Catch app, those things are mentioned. So conditions, contextualize conditions. And in what? Compared on what? Number of people. DV, if you can think of it that way, otherwise just think of it as comparison. All the things are mentioned, full marks for alternative. Not even one of these should be missing or should go wrong. Identify one extraneous variable that might affect results. How do you think of extraneous variables? What is being measured? Number of people. What should affect number of people? Whether dino catch has been launched or not. Like before it's launched, there should be less people. After it's launched, there should be more people. Is there anything else besides dino catch that can influence how many people are coming in the park? That will be called extraneous variable. Anything other than the IV that can affect the DV? That's an extraneous variable. Very simple. The weather. Weather is good, more people will come. Weather is bad, less people will come. It's a park. So, regardless of dino catches there or not, weather will influence whether people come. Other things also, the people's own mood, any offers in the park, like some ticket fare is being reduced, so more people are coming in. You can think of anything that way. There's no like hard and fast correct answer. Let's come to the next one. The bar chart in the figure shows the number of people who visited Water Lake Park in 7 days before and after the introduction of Dino Catch. Read the title very carefully and just see the trend. Before Dino Catch, you can see relatively stable, less people keep on coming. After Dino Catch, steadily they keep on increasing. Okay, always like have a general impression of a table or graph and then only come to the questions. Don't leave it for the end to see the graph. Have an understanding before seeing what they're asking you. State the number of people who visited the park on Tuesday after the Dino Catch app was introduced. Very simple. It involves basic graph reading. Tuesday is here. After Dino Catch is here. The bar is reaching till here. Y-axis scale says 40. We write 40. That's all. Outline two conclusions that can be drawn. Conclusion, not results. Don't keep on just putting in numbers. What are you understanding about launching the Dino Catch app from the data given here? Okay, so make sure to give it in terms of, like I've said before, inferences. It's only for 2 marks though this time, so you don't have to be like very elaborate on giving proper comparisons between conditions and all. You can keep it brief. Let's see the model answer. Introduction of Dino Catch led to increase in number of people visiting the park. Numbers have not been given, but the general trend has been observed that there's an increase. So the conclusion has been made about that. You're not written very explicitly that compared to before more people came later. Like I said, only 1 mark is being allotted. So just be quick about it. App was successful in motivating people to go outdoors and exercise. From where did this come? In the beginning, they've mentioned the purpose. They wanted people to enjoy outdoors. So, of course, they'll want to make an inference about this. The researcher is expecting something to happen. Once they get the numbers or the results, they will come back to see that this expectation has been met or not. So, the second conclusion is in line with that. Okay, some more information. At the end of 14-day study, researchers interviewed 10 participants about the experience of using Dino Catch. She wanted to see if there's a correlation between time spent outdoors and improvement of mood. She asked participants how many hours they spent outdoors playing dino catch. She also asked participants to rate how much their mood had improved. Scale is 0 to 10. 0 meant not at all, and 10 meant improved a lot. Data is given on the table. They want us to draw a scatter diagram. Okay, so we can see the first covariable is here, number of hours on dino catch. Second covariable is here, mood improvement rating. And we have to give a title. So 1 mark they'll give for title, second mark for axis labeling correctly, third for drawing the scatters correctly, uh, and fourth will be like the overall trend should be moving in whatever direction it's expected. Like in this case, positive correlation. Title I have presented here. I'll just show you how to draw the scatters. First thing, label the axis always x, y. Any one covariable take on x, any one on y. I would suggest just follow the order. So number of hours spent playing dino catch can go on x. I'm sorry, I don't know why this is here. Please ignore this. Oh, okay. Sorry. Now I realize. I'm sorry. This is in the paper. I'm sorry. In the paper, they've already taken number of hours on dino catch on y. So we'll retain it on y. And mood improvement rating we'll take on x. There's a fixed order in which they want us to give. Okay. So 1 mark is for the title. 1 is for correctly labeling the x-axis. 1 mark will be for giving the scales. Let's see what scale would be appropriate. Mood improvement is on 0 to 10. Usually 1 or 2 point scale is good for this. We'll consider the other variable before finalizing the scale. Number of hours spent playing dino catch. Hours are ranging from somewhere between 2 to 27. So something like a 5 to 10 point scale when the numbers are going to up to as much as 27. I think 5 should be good here. So for mood improvement, we can take 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. I know it's messy, but I'm sorry, I'm in a rush. It's 10 last, so I'll end it at 10. Number of hours spent outdoor 5, 10, 15. Make sure when you're doing it, do it neatly with the scale and all. I hope you're getting the idea from what I'm doing. 25, 30. Okay, because max is 27, so I'll stop at 30. So one more mark here for scaling correctly. And then finally, scatters need to be plotted. I won't plot all of the scatters. I don't have that much time. I'll show you 1, 2 and you can plot the remaining. See, for example, for the first participant, 7 is the number of hours and mood improvement rating is 5. So first I'll check where is 7 on the y-axis. It's difficult to be very precise, but somewhere here, roughly. Right? 7 will come between 5 and 10. And their mood improvement was 5. So somewhere between 4 and 6, this can be put precisely 5. So now where 7 on the y and 5 on the x are intersecting, I will make a scatter over there. You can make a point or a cross, whatever you want. Just to show you I made the arrows, you don't need to make. Just at the point where they're intersecting, make a dot there. I'll show you for one more participant. For the second participant, number of hours is 3, mood improvement is 5. So first on y, I'll check roughly 3 should come here, like it should be closer to 5 than to 0. And mood improvement is 5, that can be put exactly between 4 and 6, in between, right? So 3 here and 5 here, where they are intersecting, I'll put a dot. So in this way, you can keep on putting the dots for all the participants. So you'll end up with 10 dots in total, and I think they should show positive correlation. They should be going upwards. So fourth final mark is for this, for plotting the scatters correctly. Let's come to the next question. Estimate the mood improvement rating for someone who played the app for 20 hours. Use the results from the study to help you. This is very easy. You just have to estimate like a regression type of thing, but at a very simplified level because it is GCSE. Someone is playing for 20 hours, so what will be their ratings? So once you have plotted the whole graph, you will have someone on 20, like who's played 20 hours. You just have to follow, if this person is 20, what is the mood improvement. You just have to follow, like this is their dot. So where is it coming on the x-axis? I've not plotted fully right now, but if I would have plotted, there would have been a dot here. So if I follow from there till the x-axis, it comes to 8.5. So that is all we have to do. Read the graph and give the answer. Let's look at the next question. Researcher concluded playing dino catch caused participants' mood to improve. Suggest why the research is not correct to draw this conclusion. Keyword is not. This is AO2 question. Fully in context of this particular researcher, you have to say why they are not correct. In general, if you say correlation does not establish causation, that is correct. But unless you link it to the researcher situation, you won't get full marks. So in the model answer, think of it as 1 mark for the context. Researcher only did this and this, only measured these and these variables, and 1 mark for the content. Correlation does not establish causation. So even the researcher cannot say that this particular variable is the cause of that variable. Like in this case, researcher found that there is a positive correlation between playing the app and mood, but it does not establish causation. We cannot say playing the app is the reason for the mood improvement. So fully contextualize. This part is not very important, but if you can give good, what other possibilities are there? Like we saw previously, weather. We had suggested it as an extraneous variable. It could just be because weather is improving, people are playing more, they are happier, and that's why they're visiting the park also more, and their mood is becoming better. So it could be everything to do with the weather rather than playing the app. Next is explain what is meant by the psychological term sample. Purely AO1 question, there's no requirement to link to the situation at all. They've not asked you to link it. Otherwise, they would have said in this context. See. So 2 marks, make sure to give 2 points. Don't only give the definition, give some further elaboration or example. So definition wise, sample is a group of people that are selected from the population. Elaboration wise, you can say why it is important to use a sample so that the population can be represented and we can apply results to them. Alternatively, you could give an example, like let's say in Murdoch's study or in the Gilchrist study, this was the sample. Name one sampling method psychologists might use. Totally AO1 question. Name only command term, answer in 1-2 words. No elaboration needed. Opportunity sampling, otherwise you've studied stratified, volunteer, purposive, you could give any. Finally, a mini essay type of question. Outline and evaluate use of interviews in psychological research. This is for 6 marks. AO1 is 3 marks. AO3 is 3 marks. Give 3 points for AO1. Good terminology, elaborate on each, same thing, which we've seen in all AO1 parts for essay. For AO3, give 1 or 2 points of PC. I think here they've given 3, not required. Definitely not required. Fully 3 marks. 3 is too much. Give 1 or 2 points of PC. If giving 1 point, elaborate more on the E part. Otherwise, give 2 with brief PECs. Let's see how this student has given 3 descriptive points for the outline part. First, definition of interview, real-time interaction between interviewer and participant, like asking questions directly, collecting primary data. Then they have defined 2 types of interview. So definition is 1 point, identifying and defining one type of interview. Structured is a second point, identifying and explaining second type of interview is a third point. So 3 points, 3 marks for AO1. The identification and definitions are accurate. Good terms have been used. Structured interview, unstructured interview, correct terminology has been used. Now quickly we'll look at the PEC points for evaluation. Feature identified as a strength, easy to analyze. Why easy to analyze? Everyone's asked the same question, so evidence. Conclusion, why it is good? Because then we get consistent patterns of responses from various participants. Another feature identified, lot of irrelevant data can be obtained. That's the point. Evidence becomes very time consuming to then analyze so much of irrelevant data and filter out what is important. Conclusion, difficult to draw conclusions if we use this research method, so not very helpful. Like I said, 3 points are not required, but just quickly we'll just look at the last point also. Another strength can be used to collect qualitative data, evidence. Researcher gets deeper understanding, or they understand why something is happening. Conclusion, why this helps, like interview as a research method. because thoughts and feelings which we can't get from simple questions, we can get from such open or qualitative questions. Okay, so that's it. That is our paper 1 2024 GCSE. I hope this lesson has been useful to you. If you have any feedback, suggestions, questions about this video, you can leave it in the comments box below. Please don't contact me personally about anything to do with the videos. If you contact me in the right channel, I will definitely answer you from there. Okay, thank you for watching. Hope to put more videos soon. Goodbye.